team, and after train the other health staff from the Ministry of Health.
But Emmanuel is in our lab currently, so if you have a standard format for your SOPs, because I know it can differ between different laboratories. Emmanuel is trained by the DNDi for the clinical trial, so he has plenty of experience with SOPs and writing them.
You can propose an SOP?
Yes, and then we can make it similar like your SOP, so that it can be standardized. That's also an action point for this year, I guess. that will not take the whole year, but as soon as it's ready, it will be shared.
Sorry, no, I was saying that we are going to, talking with Estelle, the idea is to optimize the PCR for cutaneous leishmaniasis during this next year and to prepare everything, OPS, and for that we come with, of course, DNA samples. We are thinking also we got DNA samples from Ghana, from the survey done a couple of years ago. So it could be a very nice material to compare the results with our PCR and the new one for West Africa for these conditions. So yeah, I think it could be easy to optimize and validate the PCR. Okay, this is more or less our compromise for this. Timeline could be 1 year, or just for, yeah. Optimization and validation with the samples. Yeah. Yeah, we already got these samples. Is somebody in the meantime got some samples or wish to confirm that or to carry out some kind of validation? You can send us and we will be happy to do that.
I think we can also provide an SOP for sample collection and preservation before the end of the year. So people that could be interested in sending or sharing samples with Javier, we can provide the protocol for collection and preservation and storage. Okay, before end of the year. And we circulate before it. We circulate them on you so you can make corrections or questions in case there is something not clear.
Yeah. That would be great. I mean, there is a, I understand that the transportation and the, how to say, the shipment of samples across the customs sometimes is not easy, but in this case, we are lucky to say that our center got a permit for import and export human biological samples, which is really very nice thing because we can move samples without problem. Okay, so we can receive any kind of samples, infected, not infected, it doesn't matter. Our center got this permission, so no big problem for that. Okay.
Just a thought, because for us, like we are developing it now in Europe, but of course it's good to do early in the process some collaboration with the labs in the network too, to see if what we work in our system also works in your system. So if there are people interested and have mycetoma cases in their lab, I'm not proposing to send it just like that to us, but maybe we can share the protocols at the stage there at that time and can see how it works between the different laboratories when we fine-tune it further. That might also help.
Oh, okay, sorry. So what I was saying is that whilst we wait for the protocols for the PCRs and optimization of the PCRs, at least for the protocols for sample collection, those ones we could fast track the process to have them as soon as possible. Like for Leishmania, we are hoping by the end of the year, if we could have within the similar timelines for mycetoma, then even people on the field could start, using it and collecting the sample. So as soon as the assays are ready, we have some backlogs to start testing. Yeah.
To be discussed in another moment, but we were discussing yesterday that swabs, dry swabs could be a very suitable sample collection method for all diseases. Just asking if you have tried FTA cards. FTA cards or similar. FTA cards, like Wordman paper cards, yeah. Because they could be more. Okay, because for LACE we have that experience, and I don't know for other diseases, no. Okay, we can share some info about that. Okay, okay. Okay.
It's really a couple of CT differences if you use Copan swabs or it compared to any other. So I was just wondering, maybe we should also harmonize that we all use the same swabs.
Yeah, but the problem is it's very hard to find this kind of swabs in the country where we work. Okay. So it means that we need to buy it and to send it to each lab. Yeah. But the problem is that the lab are not performing by themselves. So they need to disseminate the swab. Yeah. So, but I have a quite good contact with the company, so maybe I can ask if they're willing to distribute in African region. Yeah, and it will depend on the cost, because if it's much more expensive. Yeah, but so I always pull the leprosy card, and they are willing to give huge amounts of discount. And also for leprosy, I'm willing, because we have established protocols for biopsies and sampling bags, I can just adjust them to the template that you have for the BU-LABNet, and I can share them, if that helps. About yours, Serge, is it? So.
Yes, about EOS, I think for the assay itself is already validated. The amplification is already validated, but we need to validate the extraction method, since we have to collect dry swab to compare with Genolyze, Expedit, and Kiagen. This is something we can do it in parallel with another lab of the network to validate directly and adapt the SOP. This is the first step. Another step we have to do is to multiplex detection of Treponema pallidum and Haemophilus ducreyi. And this can be done also with the member, a lab in the network in parallel, because most of these things are already being started. And the third thing to do about the diagnosis of yours is the detection of resistance, which now is not yet a routine activity, but Michael will provide us with some maybe plasmid.
Get some money, yep. So like I said, I see 3 activities that are required. So we need dry swabs so that we can redo the extraction experiments. I'm very confident that dry swabs work. We've already done dry versus in buffer using Kiagen, but we haven't done dry comparing across the different extraction buffers. So we need new samples that are collected dry to compare across the 3 different extraction methods. That's one. Then ideally to multiplex the assay. Again, in the UK, we've never run this as a singleplex assay, so I'm very confident that it will multiplex in Serge's hands. And I see those 2, that's the diagnostic PCR. I see that as the first step, and I agree with Serge, it would be great, for example, if KCCR or another site in the network did those steps at the same time as Cameroon, so that we already had done it in 2 labs to be really confident. And then, you know, if we could get the dry swabs, we could probably have the diagnostic PCR SOPs harmonized in 6 months. And then the resistance assay, again, I mean, it's a well-published assay. We have it running at the London School. Again, relatively speaking, providing that SOP to Sergeant to another site will be very easy. We would probably use plasmids as the positive controls. So again, within 1 year, I think you could accomplish all of those steps. I mean, they'll need a bit of funding. The main thing that will need funding will be the collecting some prospective new samples into dry swabs, because I don't think we have any lying around that haven't already been extracted for the purpose which they were originally collected for. And then a very small amount, obviously, to cover sort of the additional reagents required to get the assays running. But I would think that that could be done in, all of that could be done in 12 months. So I would think that probably yours is the closest to being integrated into the BU-LABNET for the diagnostic PCRs. And then the one thing we haven't touched on, I guess, is about the EQA. I know we're mostly talking about harmonization of the assays, but we do have a prototype EQA running, and I think it will be important almost as soon as there is a harmonized SOP to have an EQA set up to show that with the harmonized protocols, everyone performs to a standard. So again, you know, obviously there is some cost implication, but we have a model for an EQA which I think could be adopted, and there would need to be some technology transfer to whichever site becomes the I think the term we agreed was satellite site. So whichever centre ends up being the lead site for yours, they will need to have some technology transfer around how to make the EQA panels. Again, I think that could be done within 12 months with funding.
I would like to mention that we are testing also for Yao in Togo, and we use dry swab with extraction on genolite, but it's work fine. Maybe the master mix is not the same, but for the extraction we use a genolite and we amplify it.
Serge showed yesterday that you can amplify sometimes with genolite, but it's not as good as QIAGEN on the swabs that have been tested so far. So let's say you take your 100 swabs in Togo and you do your genolite extraction and you PCR, maybe you will find that 20 of them have yours in, but if you had done a QIAGEN extraction, you would have found 30. So it's not that the genolite doesn't work at all, it's about confirming that the genolite definitely works as well as QIAGEN. So I'm sure that the genolite works.
We do the comparison with the QIAGEN extraction before we trace on the genolite. Yeah. We do the two.
Maybe to Maman, it would be good to share maybe an Excel sheet of the comparison. Mainly if you did it, the amplification in the same role, it would be better to confirm the sensitivity of each extraction technique.
We also decide on maybe possible labs that can do this optimization alongside the Cameroonian group. So we know that, okay, we are looking for resources for 1 or 2 or 3 labs to do this optimization alongside CPC. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, it's not for me to decide which laboratory in Africa should do the harmonization work. I think Côte d'Ivoire have these assays set up, Ghana have these assays set up, Togo obviously have these assays set up. It's not up to me. I live in the UK. But I would suggest that someone volunteers. I mean, Michael, are you volunteering? about the cost and about the timelines, which I guess we're going to do for all of these. But within 12 months, I'm sure it can be done.
Last one is leprosy. So with Benin and Cameroon team, we had some SOPs that are ready to use. So the next step is to look for which laboratory are interested in the diagnosis of leprosy, and to see if which national program are ready to collect the samples. Yeah.
For Côte d'Ivoire, we are ready to start leprosy in the lab. The national program collects sample for research, and we can do now for surveillance. We are ready to start with the harmonized protocol from the LABNet. It's okay for Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you.
Just a short question. Estelle, are you saying that the harmonized protocols for leprosy is ready, or it is still under, you have to be clear?
So we developed the SOPs in collaboration with Charlotte Avendy and Emmanuel Cambo, that are long experience in leprosy. So just we tested the ability to use generalized and master mix from Solis Biodin, and the sensitivity is very good. So yeah, the qPCR is ready. Benin and Cameroon evaluated on human samples, and it worked pretty well. So now, as I explained, it's just the first step to then enter in the surveillance of antiviral resistance of Mycobacterium leprae. So perhaps we can have two steps. The first step is to perform qPCR, and then evaluate how many labs succeed in the collection of samples with the national programs, and then we can think about the resistance surveillance with these labs that succeed in the collection and perform qPCR.
That you've completed, what type of samples did you use? Or the skin slates or
biopsy,
swabs?
skins, yeah.
These are swabs, or
the three kind of samples.
So I think the timeline for leprosy is we're hoping to see the harmonized protocols published, right, on the BU-LABNet website. So that is the next step, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe for the leprosy, we need also to harmonize the type of sample to be collected for suspected case, and maybe also for contact. This is something important, because in one country or depending on the personnel of the program, some can collect split ear lobe sample or maybe lesion. This is something we need to clarify.
Yes, yes, it's an important question, but it's really dependent on who is performing the sampling and in which country you are. So it's permanent questions, and we have no clear answer depending on with which people we are discussing. So I have no clear answer.
I'm going to add something according to leprosy. For the sampling, I think that we have to read the SOPs according to each type of sample. For biopsy, we have to write SOPs for sampling, skin smear, nasal swab. Because in the field, it depends of what type of samples we can collect. And it depends of material that national program have in the field. Then we cannot write the SOPs only for one type of sample. It depends. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that because, for example, at the primary health care level, they will not be able to do a biopsy. So we could say that if it's at a tertiary level, the specialist could do the biopsy, or if it's at the district and it's at the primary level, maybe earlobe or nasal swab is what they will be allowed to do so that they don't hurt the patient. So we need to say that clearly in the sampling protocol, and then every country can adopt it whichever way they
It's not even just what test at what level, it's the proportion of cases, right? So for example, you have to do a test for Buruli ulcer, it's required for diagnostic testing, but I guess we're not proposing that every single leprosy case will undergo molecular testing for resistance. I mean, because that would be completely out with the current process. So, yeah, and I know that's not a question purely for the LabNet to fix, right, because that's a global question about what is the role of these tests, but I think that is really important to be clear about that when you introduce a new test, that all of a sudden we're not expecting every leprosy case is going to have a slit skin smear or a biopsy or an earlobe scrape, which is very different from a BU case or a yours case or probably a CL case. You know, you don't really want to give people antimonials without knowing that they really have CL. So, you know, a diagnostic test, it doesn't have to be a molecular diagnostic test, but a diagnostic test is mandatory basically in the other conditions, and this is obviously quite different from the case of leprosy where clinical diagnosis is sufficient.
Thank you. Michael, I raised this question based on the collection of sample for myxectoma patient. This will be challenging because from what I learned from internship, most of time it's biopsy. And even if it is a thing aspiration, you need somebody who is trained for it. I don't know how we manage it in our context. Thank you.
for these complicated sampling approaches, it will be good just to refer to a place where it can be done. Like try to promote a good approach to clinical suspicion of mycetoma, for example, and the patients will be referred to a place where they can do this fine needle aspirate guided by echo or biopsy or something like that, no? Same as for we will do for leprosy.
It's very important, the ultrasound. It's very easy, and it can differentiate the actinomycetoma to the mycetoma. Even in some cases, you can't do the thin needle aspiration because it's just some grain. But the ultrasound can guide you to confirm probably that it is mycetoma cases. What we are doing is that in the field, from suspect cases, we do the ultrasound, we confirm in, and we have in each region some dermatologists which can receive the patient in 1 or 2 days to do the biopsy. Or we can train a medical doctor or something like this to do the, but the ultrasound could be the first step of the diagnosis. It's easy and it can differentiate the actinomycetoma from the mycetoma cases.
Oh, okay. This is something at the tertiary level because I'm telling about our context. Sometimes we move up to 30 or 40, 100 kilometers from the towns. You cannot move with a doctor, with ultrasound, all those things in remote area. This is very challenging. Sometimes there is no light. From the experience with Michael through the Lamp for Yours project, I have been in the field for 3 years in remote area. This is very complicated for sample collection, mainly for those sampling needing expertise.
My suggestion for that, and I really appreciate where you are coming from, my suggestion for that is that you refer such a case maybe to the district hospital where someone has been, I don't know what you call it in Cameroon, but where someone has been trained in it, or I don't know whether it's in your context it will work, but in our context, it's possible to have somebody who can do an FNA at the district hospital, or yeah, or even ultrasound sometimes. So yeah, we need to think about that context.
I agree with that, but of course, if you have a very advanced case and grains are oozing out, you can collect them also simply by a swab or a gauze for PCR. You will not be able to grow it, but that would be possible. But to get the deep-seated sample is better, of course. But
so I guess I'm just intuitively, I feel we're getting a bit off track. We are not here to fix the whole health system. Richard and I have spent the last 4 years trying to work out how to get a sample from 30 kilometers away from his lab to his lab without research money. I think we should try and focus as much as possible on harmonizing the bits that we can fix. We are predominantly laboratory people here. We need health systems people here to understand how you do screening in a community, how you move a sample from a community to a laboratory, how you move a person from a community. Like, that is incredibly complicated, and I think we cannot solve that. We don't have the right people in the room to solve that problem, and it's not unique to these diseases. It's not to say that these things are not important, it's just to be realistic. I mean, Richard and I and Dorothy, we have spent literally 4 years just trying to understand why people don't get a diagnostic test for yours or Borrelia or leprosy, in a district that is 2 hours drive from KCCR. And there are so many different actors, so many different stakeholders, barriers in the supply of the logistics that are required, in the training of the staff, all of which are not really in the scope of a laboratory network. Of course, the laboratory network can contribute to some of those, but this is a question for programs, but not only the NTD program, the broader health system who are providing the training, the supply chains, all of these things. So I think we should try and make concrete plans for the things that the lab can address and take note of the things where we need to go back to the programs and the broader health system, because I think we will not fix how to diagnose mycetoma in the rainforest of Cameroon with the people that we have in this table, and the solution will be very different because the health system is different there than it will be in Ghana, than it will be in Sudan, than it will be in Senegal. So I think we should try and focus on the laboratory procedures that we are aiming to harmonize. I'm happy to be outvoted, but that would be my vote.
Yes, I want to add something for leprosy. I'm going to ask a question. I don't know if lab share the results to the national program of each country. Yes? Okay. I think that sharing the results with them stimulate them to collaborate with us. For example, in Benin, all the samples we received outside the lab come from the national program. And for leprosy, for example, we have a system included nurse. We have a nurse specialized in taking samples from leprosy, and they work in the district. We have a kind of that nurse in each department, and they work with the district center to collect the sample and to bring all the sample to the lab. Then we have to work hardly with the national program. Thank you.
I want to add something after what Mike has said. Yes, it's very difficult to sampling. It's the National Health Program who can organize that, but some of us, like Serge, who have some expertise on sampling, they can share their experience with the national program and organize some trainings for those who are on the field for sampling. If the program don't have someone to make sampling in the field, it's us to, if it's possible, to share our experience of sampling with them to organize the national sampling in the field.
Discussed on the cost, the budget that will be needed to move different activities forward, or it's not here where we should be discussing this? I mean, not in this. Because I think it's important, no? I mean, we know what we want to do, but we don't know who have the money to move forward, or who needs the money, etc. No? At least a ballpark figure. Side of Javier's lab. Anything they will do, it will be without cost for the network. Okay, so they will support that all these optimization activities, blah blah blah. Okay, so what is needed for the others?
Question for Wendy. So for the evaluation of generalized kits and solid building master mix and all you say you are going to do, do you have the budget, or do you need a budget to perform this optimization and harmonization procedure?
To buy the consumables would require some money. I can cover some, but I'm not sure if I can cover all.
I would. Well, a realistic budget. There's no point making a modest budget if it doesn't deliver the aims. I don't think it will be expensive, but I'm not going to write a budget that says £2.
Okay.
So, but we will write a realistic budget with which item each item costs.
Just information, the coffee break can wait. You can continue to start and to work here. Okay? The time is closed but we can continue. Thank you.
Just a precision, a budget for Cameroon field work, including also for another site of evaluation?
Another site,
two sites, okay.
We include a budget for field activity, for reagent and consumable and training.
Yeah, so it would be important to know, like in your plan, how many samples that you are thinking you need to do the evaluation, right? And the personnel that might be involved in doing that evaluation. So whether it will take 6 months for this evaluation to be done, the personnel time that will be allocated to do that over that period, and like the reagent and the consumables. So of course, in your case, we're going to buy like Kaizen kit and generalized kit as well, and all the master mix to get it done. So
yes.
So bear in mind that, and also if you are budgeting for 2 different areas, you know that the systems are not the same. So where you are collecting your samples from in Cameroon might be different from maybe Ghana or another place in terms of the field. But the lab cost might be similar, but the field collection.
Yes, we do an estimation based on what have been done so far, at least in the 3 countries. Field activity, we will do an estimation, and the duration of this harmonization depends of the field activities. After the field activity, all the reagent will be, I think, available, maybe, and we will plan the training. Even this field activity, if the money is available, I think field activity can last 1 month maximum. We have enough sample. At least, even if we have 30 sample per country, is something, an indicator to do what we are learning. And then the procedure will be extended to other members of the network.
Anyway, that's why I said a realistic budget. I mean, you know, if it's 2 countries, what sample collection costs, reagent costs, lab person time costs if there aren't people in place. So we will generate a template, I guess, for Cameroon, And then when we identify which one other country, for example, will take part in the initial harmonization, we can share that with that other country. They can adjust their costs, and then we will have an overall budget.
Sorry. We have a common plan for the new for skin entities, which is to finalize the SOP that concerns the sample collection as soon as possible. And then for each of the new disease, for mycetoma, when the labs is performing the evaluation of generalized kit and solid biodine mastermic, and then the design of a multiplex mycetoma assay. Okay, so the expected time is around 1 year for this part of the experiment. In the same time, in Senegal, they will try to collect some samples. So they need a connection with the national program and a training on how to get correct samples. That is correct. So dissemination of the SOAP for sample collection will come from the lab of Wendy. And for the budget, Wendy lab can cover a part of the harmonization, but not all. So is it clear? Yeah.
Yeah, at Sudan, yeah.
Don't forget.
Because the staff of the MRC doing the molecular is currently in my lab, so they will perform the assays.
Okay. So then for cutaneous leishmaniasis, Javier Lab are working on the optimization of the qPCR procedure to use the same reason than BU. They're preparing the SOPs. The SOP for collection are will be ready before the end of the year. And he also he will also start the evaluation of the procedure with the samples that were coming from Ghana. So he already got it. Is it correct? Yeah. So the expected time is around 1 year, and for the budget, the Javier Lab covers the cost of the harmonization procedure. Then we move on yours. So there is the need to validate the extraction method using dry swabs. So there is the need of new samples coming from the field. And they also want to use a second site to validate the methods. And then there is also the need of a design of a multiplex qPCR assay. The SOP will be ready in the next 6 months if the evaluation is performed on the 2 sites. There is also the problem of the resistance, so how to monitor it. So perhaps it's in a second step of the harmonization procedure. And also the EQA prototype is ready. So for the budget, CERS is preparing a realistic budget for the 2 sites of evaluation concerning the regions and the field collections. Is that correct? So finally for leprosy, SOAP are quite ready. So we need to precise for the SOAP concerning the sample collection, what kind of samples can be done. And so it seems that the collaboration with the national program is necessary. And Michael also underlined that all the leprosy patients, and there is no need to test all the leprosy patients, but we need to collect some of these patients to improve to start the surveillance of antibiotic resistance for Mycobacterium leprosy in African countries. And then there is a common remark on, because BU leprosy use and CL use swabs. There is a comment on the use of Copland swabs that are really useful to increase the DNA release in water suspension. So Sarah will ask for the company if she can obtain this kind of swabs. And that's it.
Coffee block for everybody now. Thank you.